Alright, I just watched the 11th episode of The Ultimate Fighter, the one before the finale, and I've been doing this now, I can't believe, for 11 weeks, recapping every single one, and I can't believe next week is the final time I'm going to do it. Are there times where sometimes I'm like, I don't want to watch the show, nor do I really want to do a video about the show? Of course there is, because, you know, some of these episodes have not been the best, but all in all, I think I am going to miss the recap series that we've been doing, and yeah, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of sad to know that next week is the final one, but it is what it is. I'm going to have tons of more to talk about when McGregor and Chandler finally, which was confirmed by Dana White. We're going to get into that as well, but I'm going to talk about the episode, recap it, and what is going on with the fight. What do we know so far? And yeah, guys, just want to remind you guys, hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share. We're trying to hit 20K by the end of the year, which just help me out. And yeah, let's get into this episode, and this episode was a really good episode, actually. It finally had the coaches challenge. If you guys don't know, the Ultimate Fighter, every season they have one episode where it's a coaches challenge, where they usually pick some sort of dumb game that the coaches have to compete on, and usually the coaches win money, the people on their team win money, so it's just a really good experience, and both the coaches get really competitive, even though it's really just dumb challenges. We're gonna get into the trivia game that they played, and basically from jump, they were already talking about, you know, Jason Knight and Kurt Holloway, the two guys that were going to fight, and yeah, the coming attractions for this episode made the fight look really good, and it was a good fight. It's definitely the fight of the season, but yeah, it turns out, you know, they were friends. Apparently, they actually lived pretty close to each other, that they were supposed to fight apparently a couple years ago. Jason Knight apparently had to pull out because of some sort of car accident situation. I don't know what really went down with that, but yeah, apparently it was a car accident that took him out of the fight, but now they get to rematch on the Ultimate Fighter with all the stakes high. And yeah, this is very similar to the situation that we had with Roosevelt Roberts and Austin Hubbard. Now, those two were friends, really close training partners, both on Team Chandler, except the difference here is that these two actually put on a really good fight. That fight was really boring. It seemed like a light sparring session. This is how two friends actually go into a fight, but I'm gonna get into the fight when that actually happens. Early on in the episode, we had the coaches challenge, and it was a really good challenge. Basically, both guys had to go into an ice bath, and Chandler was immediately freezing in this ice bath, which I was surprised about because I recently saw a video of him in an ice bath with somebody, so maybe this is something now he's more and more used to. He did mention that he only started doing ice baths right before the show started, so it is interesting because the video did happen about a month ago or so he's probably a lot more experienced now, but at the time he was, you know, very cold, chattering his teeth. Even McGregor was making comments to him, but Conor went in and seemed pretty chill in there. He said he was banged up from training, said he really needed it, and actually enjoyed the ice bath, so that kind of backfired, and they were doing some trivia on the UFC, and some of these questions were hard, and I think it was cool that you really got to see Conor McGregor's, you know, UFC fan side of him, because he definitely does love the sport, and you could see he knows a lot, right? Like, he knew a lot of things that Michael Chandler didn't know. He wound up winning the challenge, but one of my favorite parts of the challenge was that Bruce Buffer was asking the questions, right? And because in the final round, they were going to ask Chandler about McGregor and McGregor about Chandler, so Michael Chandler had to answer a question about Conor, and the question was, at what round did Khabib submit Conor? And at this point, Conor's just like, what the hell did I do, you know?
Michael, next question. In which round did Conor McGregor submit to Khabib at UFC 229? A, round 4, B, round 1, C, round 5. A, round 4.
Oh, what was the story there?
That is correct. That is correct.
I think a lot of people expected Conor to kind of react bad in that situation, especially with how bad the whole beef with him and Khabib is, but he actually handled the situation really well and actually laughed it off, so that was good to see. And then eventually we do get to the fight. Both guys, you know, already talked to their families and things like that, and yeah, this fight was all Kurt Holloway, right? I mean, he just walked down Jason Knight, made him look easy, just using the jab, throwing the 1-2, and landing every single time. Like, this was reminding me of Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson, and I was like, yikes, man, each shot, it was so quiet in there, and maybe that's also why it reminded me of that fight, but it was dead quiet because nobody is shouting because they're on the same team, so nobody's coaching, and it was just Jason Knight really getting beaten down in there, and eventually, yeah, the first round was brutal for Kurt, and then in the second round, he got a TKO, finished him off with a body shot, and definitely the best fight. Gotta give credit to Jason Knight. He was incredibly tough in there, maybe too tough for his own good, took a whole lot of shots, but even guys with the best chin, you gotta go to the body, and that's when he was able to drop Jason Knight, and yeah, just took a few follow-up shots, and thank God, man, this fight was so close, I think, to being called on the feet standing TKO for Kurt Holloway, because honestly, the referee was like, hey, you gotta protect yourself, and yeah, it was a really good performance from Kurt Holloway, and that's the kind of performance you want going into it. You actually want something that's, you know, going to hold weight and going to make fans remember and be like, hey, man, I can't wait for the finale. This is what happened. He's gonna be fighting Austin Hubbard, I guess, because they both won, and yeah, that was the end of that episode, and yeah, we got one more left. Conor's only prospect win is going to be facing off against the guy with the knee injury. Honestly, I don't remember their names. names off the top of my head, but I want to spend the rest of the video talking about Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor. What do we know about the fight? Is the fight happening? Well, we have some good news because Dana White did confirm at the press conference yesterday and said, hey, he talked to Conor McGregor. He's good to fight Michael Chandler, that this is all kind of just talk, which a lot of us already suspected. But yeah, he is going to be fighting Michael Chandler per Dana White. It's going to happen now. When is it going to happen? I wish someone would just ask him, like, is it happening in December? Like, we need to know answers here. My prediction has been for the longest time, like, hey, the fight's gonna happen in December, but Conor's going to, you know, mix up some loopholes here and there. I don't know if that's going to be so true anymore. We don't even know if he's in the USADA pool. Does the fight happen eventually? I do think so. I doubt the fight is just not going to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of hurdles, but I don't think it's going to get a point where Michael Chandler's gonna be like, all right, let me go fight someone else. It does suck for Michael Chandler though, because he is older than Conor McGregor, right? He doesn't have as much time, nor does really Conor McGregor have a lot of time though. And it does suck because, no, if the fight does get moved to January, that'll be a full year without Michael Chandler fighting. You gotta wonder how many fights does he really have in him. He's getting older by the day. So yeah, it just sucks, and it'll really suck too if just Chandler can never fight Conor McGregor, because that's just extremely unfair. You know, he had this big money fight lined up, and yeah, just to get it taken away all because of one person, it sucks. So I do hope the fight goes down, and I do think it's an interesting matchup. I think it's like a 50-50 matchup, which is good. This isn't a McGregor matchup where we're kind of like, yeah, McGregor's probably gonna lose. This is a matchup where you could see Conor McGregor winning, but you could also see Michael Chandler winning. Now, obviously, Conor has talked throughout the whole week like he's not going to fight Michael Chandler. He also tweeted something basically alluding to the fact that UFC doesn't want him to fight Michael Chandler, which I kind of believed in the moment, because listen, there are a lot of bigger fights. I mean, the Justin Gaethje fight is up there. If he fights Justin Gaethje in December, gets the BMF title, maybe UFC 300, he fights Nate Diaz, right? And the Michael Chandler fight, if I'm going to be honest, probably isn't the top 5 fights Conor McGregor could come back to right now. And that's just the truth. I don't think that this is the biggest matchup you could have made. I think Poirier is bigger. I think Gaethje is bigger. I think Diaz is bigger. I think even a Jorge Masvidal fight is bigger. And yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised to see if the UFC is like, hey man, we do not want this matchup anymore, but it's kind of tough because we already made the TUF season, which I realized I said was tough, but they already made the TUF season with Michael Chandler, so this isn't a situation where they could just kind of back out of it. And I feel like I predicted this matchup so many times. I think next episode I'm going to do a more in-depth prediction maybe, but here I'm just going to say I've been saying since the beginning of The Ultimate Fighter, if Conor McGregor comes back as he was against Dustin Poirier, I got Conor by knockout. I'm pretty certain of that outcome. But of course, we have a leg break in between, we have steroids in between, we have Conor gaining weight in between. We know there's a lot of big question marks to Conor McGregor's motivation and how he's doing, how he's been training. A lot of big question marks with that, so that's why I think the matchup is a bit interesting. Does Michael Chandler have the tools to be Conor McGregor? Absolutely. I think he could out-wrestle him in the beginning, maybe in that second round, mix in that wrestling, mix in that striking. And I think if he does that, I think we could see Michael Chandler knock out Conor McGregor. But you also look at the downsides of Michael Chandler, right? I mean, his fight IQ, I hate people saying it about him, but it is true. The guy does go in there and kind of abandon all game plans, like he did with Dustin Poirier, where he got his back taken in that 3rd round and got submitted. Makes a lot of careless mistakes. He'll be trading with people like Dustin Poirier, who he really shouldn't be trading with, and makes a lot of mistakes like that. Like, if you're gonna trade with Conor McGregor, McGregor is going to win. He's counter-striking is out of this world, and I just worry for Michael Chandler in that regard, but I do think that he could beat him with the wrestling, and if he plays it smart, he could definitely beat him. He definitely has the tools, and that's what makes the matchup interesting. So let me know in the comment section below, who do you guys think is going to win? I'm going to give my prediction next week on who I think is going to win, a little bit better, a little more in-depth, because I haven't really talked about the leg break, how I think that's going to affect Conor McGregor. So tune in next week. Guys, thank you guys for watching. You guys have watched all 11 episodes. I'm so surprised you guys have followed along for every single one, but if you guys have, for those of you that have, man, thank you guys so much for the support. You guys are the best, and that's why I do these videos on a week-to-week basis. So thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, and I'll see you guys in the next one.